Uh, we're gonna meet a multi-talented artist, but let him introduce himself.
I take it I can go ahead.
Sure.
Well, my name is Gary Frier. I'm based in Cape Town, well, a small suburb outside Cape Town called River. I've been doing art for uh, professionally about give or take 3 decades, say. I studied graphic design, and although I started working in that field, I sort of moved into more fine arts, and now in the last say 20 years, I've been doing various facilitating work and teaching in mental health and also um, rehabilitation um, uh, health, you could say. I work at Falkenberg Psychiatric Hospital in Observatory part-time. And then I also do various fine arts projects for myself and for clients. I think that's more or less what I do.
You talked about working uh, or maybe helping with mental health.
Hmm.
I mean, what do you do there?
Well, I facilitate the fine arts class. So what I basically do is I run a pottery class and a visual arts class. So that's drawing and painting. And then I provide the materials and a bit of tuition, a little bit, and I sort of make give people opportunity, or give the patients or the participants the opportunity to open themselves up to creativity, to a creative exercise. In essence, that's what I do with pottery and clay work. It's more there's a bit more of a teaching element to it, and less so with visual arts, where I just sort of give materials, show them basic principles, and then give them an opportunity to do some creative work.
By the way, what nationality are you?
I'm South African, born and bred in Cape Town. Grew up in the suburbs of around Cape Town, northern suburbs.
What was growing up like for you?
Um, it was it was very stable. I think in my formative years, I have a very close, loving family. Um, in fact, I still stay in the house I grew up in. Um, I grew up in at the tail end of apartheid, uh, where uh, the the apartheid regime was being well dismantled, you could say. But I wasn't. Although some of my family were involved in that in the in the struggle, um, I it, I wasn't. I was sort of sheltered from that, um, and uh, my 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 family. I mean, my home life was very um, sheltered. I could say, if I can put it that way, sort of. Yeah.
Uh, Tell us about the apartheid struggle. I mean, for independence or something like that.
Sorry, can you just repeat that?
Tell us about the struggle for independence.
Well, the, my family, actually, my from my father's side were involved in academia. A few of them were jailed. Some of them left for Europe, and so so they, although they weren't, they didn't go to Robben Island. They were sort of jailed for an arrest, basically. I remember an uncle of mine that was sent to jail. He was a principal, and some of my second cousins that were involved sort of in the struggle, and then left the country to Europe at the time. Of course, I was still a child then, so I didn't understand the implications of it really. You know, the depth of it, of what was going on there in that time. It was only when I became an adult that that I realized what, you know, the seriousness of what had really happened. Yeah. So that's about it, I think.
You are an artist, a multi-talented one at that. How did you get into your profession?
I studied. My family. Well, actually, my grandmother noticed that I had some talent, and I used to draw a lot, well, like what most children do. But what really got me into the field was that on my grandmother's property, she had a separate entrance, like a house behind her formal house, and my art teacher got newly married and asked to stay there before he would buy his own house for his family. And that's how she introduced me to him. And then I went to an art school program on a weekend, and sort of that kind of stayed to me. He was probably one of my formative teachers, you could say. The one teacher, everybody, I think most people have him. The one kind of teacher that stands out for you, that becomes your mentor, really, and introduced me to art, introduced me to creativity, and so that's how I sort of became an artist, professional artist, you could say, and creative person.
So you more or less received parental support?
Yeah. He was really the first one who gave me, who inspired me, and who supported my endeavors and career. I studied formally. I studied graphic design, but I never felt comfortable in that sector, in that career, you could say. It was too constrictive, and for me it's a bit shallow. The type of work that you ended up doing, it was work in advertising, and it was just not for me. Yeah.
You know why I asked that question is because where I came from, parents will always ask their wards to study medicine, study law, study engineering. You know, I mean, like those are the three major things. You know, but but thank God, parents are getting they are getting softer now, softer in quotes.
Yeah.
You must have appeared in art shows, exhibitions, and so on. So how many have you appeared in and where?
Uh, over my professional life, or in the last year.
Well, I mean, your work as an artist, maybe you go and maybe show uh, the things you have and all those things.
Okay. Well. Most recently, I've shown in. I mean, over my sort of professional career, I've shown in a lot of places. I've worked with a lot of institutions. Just a few ones that stand out are the Alliance Francaise. I did a project with them a couple of years ago, a good couple of years ago, actually. Where we did an artist exchange, and then I did a big a mobile mural for a project that they were working with in uh, year with the Alliance Francaise, and then with the national body called People and Culture. And then I've worked with the District 6 Museum. That's more recent, about 3 or 4 years ago, where we did a collaborative work with the people that were um, that were kicked out of District 6, and we memorialized the hospital that had been built there. They were building a new facility onto the old facility, and so we memorialized the history of the people that lived in that area. Um, and then I worked in various clinics and that type of thing. Most recently, we did quite an interesting show at the Premier's residency in Cape Town, which used to have a slave lodge on the property of the farm called Leonhoff Estate. And then I was invited to do. Oh my goodness! Sorry about that.
It's all right.
That's all right. I'm not used to. I just started using this tablet, and I'm not really used to it.
Okay, no problem.
uh, there we go. Sorry
All right.
about that. Where was I? Leonov. So they recently converted the slave lodge into a museum / gallery to commemorate the slaves that had been stationed there. So I was invited to put up put some up my work that spoke about colonialism, slavery, that type of that era, and that history of Cape Town that is sort of overshadowed in a way. And then I've been invited to various group shows and galleries, and yeah, in Cape Town is there's two galleries that from time to time have work of mine in on display. Yeah, and that sort of support my practice. Yeah.
Have you done certain works in collaboration with other people?
Yeah. The community work that I've done is usually in collaboration with either other artists or other organizations. Most recently, I've been working with what is called matrix clinics, dealing with rehabilitation of people suffering under substance abuse, and that's in collaboration with the City of Cape Town and a consulting firm called ZAG. Like I said previously, I worked with the District 6 Museum, which is the museum dealing specifically with the District 6 removals in Cape Town. I've worked with the Delverwood Museum in France when they were revamping the museum, commemorating the South African soldiers that were killed in the First World War. Yeah. So there's there's quite a few instances where I've worked with other people in conjunction with other people and organizations for a particular project with a theme and so forth. Yeah.
There is a belief that South Africa is xenophobic.
Yeah.
What's your view on that?
Well, I think there is definitely a aspect of xenophobia in South Africa, and I think it's exasperated by the poverty and the class system that we have here. So, and I see parallels with that and what's happening in America with the anti immigration sentiment in America, where politicians create, well, some of them create this situation where they incite the population against people that are coming from different countries and from different situations, and that. So yeah, it is a reality in South Africa, but it's not it's it's not uncommon, compared to what's happening in the rest of the world, in what's happening in Europe, and it's quite interesting to me how it's portrayed politically, who wants power, and how do they get it, and who do they use to get that power politically. Yeah, that's my.
So to you, I mean, xenophobia in South Africa is not different from racialism in the Western world, or even tribalism in various other countries and so on, right?
Well, not so. Where racism and xenophobia and those type of issues, South Africa, the way it's, I mean, what is happening in South Africa isn't very different, I think, to the Western world. But South Africa is different in a sense to the West. It's got its own history and politics. I mean, we steeped, especially in Cape Town, we steeped in the history of colonialism, and the indigenous people are their history is very oppressed. Whereas in the West and in Europe, that kind of history is white. Well, is whitewashed. You don't hear about. You don't really. I mean, really, there's no serious depth of dealing with colonialism in Europe, right? And in Cape Town, I get the impression. I mean, this is just my opinion, that type of history is also being sort of whitewashed, kind of, but in a different type of way. It's it's in a different. It's a different type of way of talking about the same issues here.
Okay. So what do you stand for as an artist?
Sorry, just repeat that.
What do you stand for as an artist?
Well, I can tell you what I'm interested in as an artist. As I'm getting older, I'm very interested in social political issues. I'm interested in movements dealing with socialism, and I find anarchism very interesting, very compelling type of philosophy.
Anarchism, you said?
Anarchism.
Okay.
Yeah, I find the philosophy very interesting, and and from that kind of standpoint, I I delve in different aspects of the life that surrounds me. I mean, socially, the people that surround me, where I stay, uh, the area that I stay, and then that um, those things I reinterpret into my personal work. And so, from that point of an artist, I try and mirror what what type of life surrounds me and give an impression back through my art. If I can, if that's if you can understand what I mean.
No, I get what you're saying. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I mean it's not. I mean that's really what most artists are doing. I think from their point of view, that's what makes art really interesting. I mean, what authors are doing, what other artists are doing, the materials that they use, and how they express themselves. Those are that's what makes it interesting. Everybody's perspective is different from their point of view of where they're from. So in that sense, I'm not. I mean, what I'm doing is not very much different from what other artists I think are doing.
So, which political system do you think is best for the world?
That's that's a very loaded question.
No, you see, like, I mean, from what's going on, okay, like the Russian invasion of Ukraine and so on, and we've found out that I mean, socialism or communism is not the best, because
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you see many of those that are influential will just go out of the countries and go and be enjoying in the West, right? I mean, from socialist countries. Then capitalism too may not be the best,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, so we are at a crossroads, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm asking you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well. I, I, I'm by no means an expert in systems that work, but I do have a perspective, and I'm actually. I was just before we started the meeting, I was listening to a professor in economics called Richard Wolff, who's a professor. I think he's in America. He's talking to Noam Chomsky, and he deals with social. He deals with socialism and how it affects economics, and I think his perspective is very interesting because he says socialism isn't just one. There isn't just one socialism. It's been tried in different places in different ways. In Russia, it was tried in a particular way that didn't really work out. China is kind of socialist, but more centralized, of a centralized government, and it seems to be working for China. All right. And then you have Cuba, which is also totally different place. Brazil, also trying to bring in some aspects of socialism into their society to bridge the class divide. I think anarchism for me is very interesting, although it hasn't been a specific thing that country that has done it. But there are aspects of anarchism that have been pulled into different social systems that work, where people are given more autonomy to run their lives and to create systems that would be helpful to the way their systems run better. Yeah. So I don't think there is one particular one that really works really well. Although capitalism is the most prevailing system, I don't think in this day and age, it's not really doing really well. It's destroying the environment, and if the environment is destroyed, we all are destroyed. So I think we need to find a sweet spot, if for want of a better word, where we take the best of what history has shown and try to create something that is good for everything, not only us but the environment and society as a whole.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask, in what ways are you impacting society? But you've told us earlier, right? I mean,
Yeah,
about
yeah.
your work. I know. So let's go on and ask you, what will you tell who be artists? I mean, those who want to be uh, in your profession.
What would my advice be?
Yes,
Is
yes,
that what you?
yes,
Yes, yes,
yes.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Uh, so many people are. I mean, especially um, parents ask me that question, and um, I always, well, my first point of departure is that I think whoever's creative and whatever they're using as their creativity to express themselves, I think the person that sees it should first of all encourage that person and expose them to improve their skills, their craft. Yeah. Um, and I think collaboration is important. Find other artists, other people doing different things, and collaborate with them and learn from them. All right. Uh, and then education is, oh my word, serious. And then I think education is really important, but also where and with who you find that education. Not only the institutions, but the people that surround you, the people that you find are doing interesting work. Uh, yeah, I think those things in retrospect. I mean, from what I've experienced, I think those would be the important things to concentrate on for somebody starting a career in art. And that's in a broad definition. I mean, a writer, a poet, a musician, that type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you are a sculptor, you are a painter, you are a fan artist, and all those things. Which one do you find most attractive?
The one that the medium that is most easiest to do at that particular time when I'm doing that particular artwork. For me right now, it's painting. Painting is really easy. It's easy to get access to a canvas. I've got one behind me right now that I'm working on, and so I mostly do painting. But where I work at the hospital, at the Falkenberg Hospital, I have access to clay, and sometimes I have a bit of time, so then I work just on that, and then that place becomes easier it becomes easier to do that type of work there, if you know what I mean. So I've got access to the material, I've got access to the tools, and so that it becomes easier to do that type of work there. So for me, it's just where I am at that time and what inspiration I have, and what can I do with that material that will make it meaningful. Yeah. So at the moment, I'm working on a couple of paintings. And so those are the things I'm kind of concentrating on. I've got all the materials near to me, and so that in and of itself becomes easy to do. If that explains the
Which
question.
particular work took you the longest time to complete?
Ooh, um, I suppose. I suppose there were a few paintings that took quite a lot of time some years ago. Um, I wonder if those are the ones yes, there is actually one from a series that I sent you. One of the 5 images.
Okay,
There's
okay.
a one that's blue with like the inside of the lady's face or person's face is yellow. That took quite a lot of time because I did quite a lot of research and it references a colonialist painting. So I had to superimpose that onto the portrait that I did, and there was a lot of detail in it. And then there were a few in that series where I used the same method, and those were quite complex and detail and difficult to do because they had a lot of complexity to them. Um, and yeah, those took a bit of time. Those it took about a few months to do. Um, so that was tricky.
Okay. Tell us about a day you'll never forget.
The day I would never forget. Ooh. Um, I suppose not necessarily artistically, but the birth of my son would be probably the day I would never forget. Um, that was yeah, that was probably the biggest moment in my life. Um, meeting um, well, the person that's half of you.
Okay.
So that was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Who has made the greatest impact in making you who you are?
Uh, well, I think my my art teacher. I've always, I mean, career wise, uh, my life. My art teacher, Garth Erasmus, was probably, I would say, probably the most influential person um, to that has made my life as a creative person. Still a good friend of mine, and yeah, he's probably been the most influential aspect. I mean, creatively in my life.
Okay. Can you tell us about the happiest day in your life so far?
Sorry, can you just repeat that?
Your happiest day so far. Your happiest day so far.
Happiest day. Okay, okay. Uh, well, a few days ago, I got a previous client that bought work from me, commissioned a painting for himself, um, and that was really the greatest day because it was not only had he bought the painting like years and years ago, he had commissioned quite a big piece, and so that's kind of fueled the rest of the work that I'm doing now. And that's probably in recent times. That's probably been the happiest day so far.
You must have, gotten some cool cash.
Yeah. Well, it's always good to have a buffer, a financial buffer, because then you don't have to really. You can really work without having to think about the stuff you need in life. You think about groceries and rent and paying for this and paying for that. There's this freedom to push yourself creatively a bit more. So that it just eases your mind. Like you can throw things off your mind that are day-to-day struggles and concentrate on the thing that you're really good at.
Okay, we have about 2 minutes to go. Can you just tell us about your most embarrassing moment?
Well, I've had quite a few, but I think probably my most embarrassing moment would be when I was doing the project with the Allianz Francaise, and I had to speak publicly about being nominated to do this exchange with another French artist, and it was like a lot of dignitaries were there, and the people from the French ambassadors and various other socialites and stuff, and I hadn't spoken publicly, and I'm not particularly good at speaking in large crowds, which I try to avoid, and that was probably the most embarrassing moment of my life. Public embarrassment. but it's not unusual. I think it's probably one of the greatest fears of people to speak in public. So it's not really significant in the great scheme of things. But at the time, it was probably the most embarrassing moment.
It's been nice talking to you.
Same here, man.
Yeah.
How do you? I wanted to ask though. How do you blur out the background?
Sorry?
You blurred out the background.
Sure.
Yeah. How do you do that?
There's an application in Zoom where you can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so my next Zoom, I'll use that.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the chat.
You're welcome.
And thanks for the opportunity.
I hope I wasn't too hard on you.
No. I find it good that people ask you questions that you're not really prepared for, because it makes you think. My only worry is that my response is not